I have just turned 24. I love my country. It is my home and I do care about it. Our beautiful countryside takes my breath away, especially every time I spend time outside. It reminds me how much I appreciate our region. I love our diverse culture and the rich heritage we are building on. But we face so many challenges, especially for my generation. We worry what the future holds for us. I wonder if my education is good enough. Will I be able to get a job? Many of my friends have already left, thinking there could be better opportunities elsewhere. I want to believe I can live a good life without moving away from what I love. But what can I expect for my future? Some pretend that joining the EU would solve most of our problems. Do you think it is true? We do have common challenges. We do have shared responsibilities. Let's talk about them.
It is my pleasure to announce our first debate, Western Balkans and the EU, Common Challenges and Shared Responsibilities. Here to tell us more is our moderator, the Secretary General of the Regional Cooperation Council, based in Sarajevo, Majlinda Bregu. Okay.
You didn't listen, Maya.
So, good evening, here we are. Good evening to everybody who will be attending the panel that I'm glad that I'll have the chance to moderate. And I'm glad even for a reason which is quite important. At least during the last 6 months, in all the panels that I have participated, I was the only woman. And as you know, as the saying goes, men of quality do not fear equality. So I'm pretty glad that today you'll have the chance to hear from distinguished ladies about the challenges of Western Balkans, the relations with EU, and what I like most in the title is the shared responsibility. From January this year, for all of you that do not know me, coming from the Albanian politics, being a Minister of European Integration for almost 7 years, then again in Parliament, so almost 15 years dealing with EU integration of the region and my country. But from January this year, I'm chairing the Regional Cooperation Council, which is the organization that takes care, an international one, on the cooperation among 13 countries of Southeast Europe, but especially with focus on the Western Balkans, 6 since the Berlin process. So, I would start now by inviting one by one the distinguished ladies that will be with me in the panel. Dubravka Šuica, MEP, European Commission Vice President Designate for Democracy and Demography, Vice Chairwoman, I should say, of the EPP group. An experienced Croatian, 15 years of experience, a proud mayor, former mayor of Dubrovnik. So here we have the lady that is from the host country as well. And Madame Šuica has quite a challenging portfolio, which is shaping the EU together with the citizens. And I wish you good luck on Conference for the Future of Europe in 2020.
Thank you.
Now I will welcome one representative of the young generation from the region. Amila Karacic, Deputy Program Director, International Republican Institute, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Amila is a positive example of an energetic young generation from Sarajevo, where my head office is. And she has worked on women political empowerment and increased the political participation of youth. And the last but not the least, definitely, the president of Robert Schuman Institute and EPP Women, Doris Pack, a lady that I know since 15 years, a veteran of EPP, MEP, and one of the few members in parliament, so it is, that was so much emotionally and passionately attached to the region.
Thank you.
So welcome to the three of you. Just to set the tone now for this panel. Well, I could ask you kindly to imagine a scale capable of weighing the good and the bad that a political decision can do. Then try to visualize a region of almost 20 million people where historical injustices have never been short. 56% of the citizens of this region are staunch believers of the European integration. And the figure goes higher if you ask the young generation. 61%, they do firmly support the European perspective of their countries. And those are the ones who feel confused, worse, confounded, by the no decision on opening accession negotiations with Albania and North Macedonia. Well, Western Balkans is not a developed region, conscious that Europeanization of our countries is not yet there. While EU has always been the lighthouse that has inspired and shaped the policies in the region. I'm glad that EPP has always supported the opening of accession talks and the whole process of membership of Western Balkans with EU. The new European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has recommitted herself to a proactive policy for the Western Balkans to be as close as possible to the EU. Now and lately, we have a new proposal from France, and then we'll go to discuss a little bit on that as well. But let me just end up my main lines with one sentence. Whatever decision or methodology that will be prepared, written, voted on the Western Balkans, I think it's high time to be taken with Western Balkans 6 on board. And it has to be clear, with no ambiguity, no doubts, and especially to support the region in combating corruption, consolidate the rule of law, independence of justice, and economic perspective. So, I will start by you, Dubravka. In the statement during the hearing in Parliament, you consider Europe's demographic change as a root cause of some people losing faith in democracy. And actually, 230,000 citizens from Western Balkans have legally migrated in EU in 2018. And during the last 7 years, are more than 5 million citizens, 1/4 of the actual population, that left Western Balkans. There is a lot of criticism from the people in the region. They don't trust political parties, they don't trust the governments, and they don't trust the judiciary. And I guess this is quite a worrisome illustration of the democracy deficit that is in derail, not only in the Western Balkans, for the sake of truth, but mostly in there. So how will you address it?
Thank you for this question. First of all, thank you for following my future portfolio and knowing what I said in hearing. But let me start from democratic deficit. You said there is democratic deficit. I won't agree with you that there is democratic deficit. The problem is demography, which you pointed out well. Demography and demographic change is the problem nowadays. So people start blaming democracy for this phenomenon, which is demographic change. Now we have to talk about the reasons for demographic change. You said that people don't believe anymore in political parties, in governments. People, part of them, it is true, but the reason is sometimes that we are not as close as we politicians, I mean, as close as we should be to our citizens. This is one of the reasons. And I think we have to talk about this phenomena of demography and democracy together. Although some of them started asking me what is the connection. The connection is blaming democracy for the situation in their region. People are moving not only from state to state, from country to country, from east to west, but also from rural areas to urban areas. So there is a big, massive movement at the moment within European Union, and not only European Union, but also from the Western Balkans countries. And of course, politicians should address this phenomenon. But when we talk about demography, for example, this is maybe the best place to tell this. You have to, prime ministers, presidents, they should talk about this, commissioners now, not deputy of deputy ministers. This was the situation in the area, so we have to improve this. We have to see that this is apart from climate change, apart from digitals, apart from jobs. We have to see that demography is one of the key problems, and you can't nowadays make any economic analysis, any economic plan if you don't take into account demographic change, and if you don't take Eurostat or Balkan, I don't know the name of the statistics. If you
the Balkan barometer.
Balkan barometer. If you don't take this into account, you have to take this into account, and then you can predict the future. So the problem is real demography, I'm sure. But if these countries were allowed to open the negotiations, the situations would have been different, and your percentages would be different. I'm completely sure, without any analysis. So people are looking forward to European Union, people are looking forward to European integration. I may witness from Croatian position. As you know, Doris might know very good the situation in Croatia. We used to negotiate 2,096 days, which was a long period of negotiations, but we managed. Nowadays, when you look 6.5 years later, how we go on with our economy, with the problems we used to have in Croatia, you'll see that we are increasing, and this is the pattern we can share with our neighbors, especially with North Macedonia, Albania. But I have to highlight here Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is our first neighbor, and we want to help Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we want to see them on board, and we'll do our best to help them.
Thank you very much for the message, which is actually true. So everybody should be vocal on this demography deficit in the region. But yeah, democracy deficit as well, I would say. So I'll pass the floor to Amila now. Amila, you've been studying abroad, and then you decided to come back in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which it doesn't look the trend that the region is facing. While still 21% of Western Balkan population are young persons, the situation is quite gloomy because 35% of the youth are unemployed. And this is the double unemployment of EU. And 61% of them would like to live and work abroad. So, what do you think is the main reason that young people are increasingly thinking to leave? Is it only unemployment?
Thank you. Thank you for, your question, and thank you also to the EPP for inviting me. I feel like I am here with, having different roles. I am here as a representative of the International Republican Institute, but also as a young person from Bosnia, so I feel a certain responsibility to speak on behalf of my generation as well. To come back to your question, why young people are leaving, I would say, quite simply put, it's because they do not want to live in a captured state. And you mentioned unemployment. Unemployment is just a consequence of living in a captured state that works for a few, but does not work for the many, for the citizens. And this is not something I'm just now making up. It is backed by data. It is backed by your data from the barometer. It is backed by IRI polls, which show that citizens are overwhelmingly concerned about corruption and organized crime, not necessarily ethnic tensions as some politicians like to portray it in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But when you look at the background of those who are leaving and those who have left, sure enough, there are those who leave because they want to survive, because they were not able to find a job in Bosnia and other countries in the region. But looking at the education background and the professional background of those who are leaving, those are highly educated and skilled young professionals who are leaving not because they may be not able to survive, they are, it's because they are not able to thrive in Bosnia and Herzegovina, live with dignity, as we have heard today. And it's because it is really not about survival, it's about being rewarded for your hard work, knowing that you have access to basic services. And it's not much that young people are demanding, I think. They have been quite patient. Just in Bosnia, 24 years, in 5 days we will have the 24th anniversary of Dayton. They have waited for 24 years to have good health care, good education, infrastructure, road safety, public transportation. It's not much that they're asking for. Essentially, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I would say corruption kills. But, I don't want to paint a too dark of a picture here, and it's not all negative. I think that there are some very positive examples, and I work for an institute that on a daily basis engages with young people, from activists to members of the civil society and also young political leaders. And frankly speaking, they give me hope. I would also echo what U.S. Special Envoy to the Western Balkans, Matthew Palmer, said a few weeks ago in the Congress when he testified. He said that there are pockets of optimism, local actors, local political leaders who are bringing about change in the country. Sarajevo Canton is one example. North Macedonia with very courageous decisions that they made, tough decisions, but very courageous. And I think that is something that we should recognize and applaud.
Well, thank you very much. And we heard as well from the video at the beginning, the young lady that was saying that she was, again, thinking as the others to leave the country. So Doris, when I just made my short introduction, I mentioned the no decision of opening the accession negotiations on Albania and North Macedonia. Actually, there have been 2 questions that have been addressed to the delegates of this Congress. And the 2 questions were, do you think that the no decision will have an effect and impact geopolitically the region? And another one on the reforms impediment. So do you think that the no decision of opening the accession negotiations will make the reforms harder to move on and to be achieved? And the majority responded that they strongly agree that this might happen. So for the very first time, we noticed this year 56% of the citizens in the region that supported EU integration. It has never been more than 50. How could you explain now the whole process to the young people once you meet them, once you train them? So what's your stake on that?
I just wanted to say something on the question of the youth, because it's very important. Everybody should know that especially the European Union, the European Parliament was taking care of the youth long time before anybody else thought on this. We started as the EPP group in the European Parliament to have interns all the time. Andrej Plenković was one of it. So I think we were always interested to get people together, Croats, Serbs, Bosniaks, and so on. So I think we did it. We did it also with our programs. I was rapporteur for Erasmus all the time. I was rapporteur for the last Erasmus+, and we always opened our education and youth programs for the people, young people of the Western Balkan, so-called Southeast European countries. Otto von Habsburg is always furious if he's listening Western Balkan, so I am still following him. On the other side, as you have seen on this wall or see, I'm president of the Robert Schuman Institute, and we are working in the region. I was just in Albania. 2 weeks ago, I was in Kosovo with the Robert Schuman Institute. I was in North Macedonia. So we are working with the young people to bring everybody, bring them together, to give them at least some tools, some interested things to think not to leave the country. So this is very important. This is one part, and don't forget the Konrad Adenauer Foundation is always in the same field working with us. But there's one medal, we help. But as you said, the young people are leaving, even the best skilled one, also because they don't have a job. And the jobs will not come as long as the justice system in the region is as it is. Yes. If you are not sure of investment, then I think they will not come. So this, it is a win or a lose-lose situation, and therefore I think politicians should look on this. But as you said, we have to think on the situation which we face there. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, Angela Merkel started to have these Balkan summits, at least. Because a long time we let them alone. And democracy, if we are not taking care of it, it is not flourishing. And if we are not really strongly saying to the politicians, what you are doing is false, what you are doing is not based on European values, then we lose the moment. And the people, normal people, they are suffering under nepotism, under corruption. They ask me, Mrs. Park, why the European Commission is not telling this also as loud as you do to these local politicians. Unfortunately, they have been elected. That is a big problem we have. And we had the Balkan Summit, which was great. And one of the results of the Balkan Summit is this famous European youth organization, which is like the German-French youth work has been created. I was at the beginning with it. So we bring people together also because we need reconciliation in the whole region. But what we need also that there are really results. The last Balkan summits, I spoke a lot on education, and I spoke a lot on economy and trade relations. But the people don't see anything. They don't see the transport question solved. Not at all. To come from Banja Luka to Sarajevo, who is doing it? Me and you. But normal people are not going from there, and not from there. So I think it's only one example. We need facts. We have a lot of words. We have a lot of nice words. And sometimes too nice words, too diplomatic words that the politicians in the region do not understand. And if we now see that this situation is now even worse because everybody expected to at least to start the negotiations, can you imagine Northern Macedonia? In this time it was not named like this. It has candidate status in 2005, even before Croatia. And where they are now, at least they managed to solve a problem for them and for us, which is due to the fact that we have the anonymous vote in the council. They managed it. And what is the reward? Nothing. And this is something which nobody can understand. People cannot understand. Politicians neither. So I think, and if we look to the other situation, Albania, we cannot compare with North Macedonia. They have a lot of problems. Okay. But for the sake of the people, and that the people doesn't lose the hope for a better situation, and that they stay at home, we should have opened the negotiations, but with conditions. And these conditions are on the table. And I couldn't understand that Monsieur Macron and then three others didn't see this as a chance, and as a lost chance, because we are the ones who are interested that these countries in the middle of the European Union are really well structured, well working. Russia is not interested, China is not interested, Erdogan is not interested. But we leave them the room. And this is a shame, and I think Mr. Macron was not aware when he did it. He played a very special role, and after seeing what everything is now speaking on this subject, he now is thinking, oh, I have to do something, because everybody wants to not being very happy with me. So he made this paper. I have checked this paper. There are 7 steps. Can you imagine 7 steps? After each step, the council has also anonymously to vote. Okay, and then if not, okay. So after these 7 steps, it is in eternity. It will never be. So we had, until now, we had a procedure. We could follow it. But I can also say, if I was listening to the so-called frontrunners, Montenegro and Serbia, what was the result? What is being better now? Is the situation in justice better? Is the situation in corruption better? Is the situation in media better? And the people say to me, nothing is happening. So I think we should give the people, if we want them to join once again, and I think Macron doesn't want it because he thinks this EU is still too big. So I think we should really be correct and stay to our in 2003 treaty, which means at the end they can come. And therefore, perhaps we could find new ways, but not making it more problematic. And I don't know, some people have perhaps listened to the Stability Initiative. I think they have good ideas. Why not thinking in some way, bringing them closer to our economic area? Not forgetting that they have to continue the work on legislation, changing it. Why not? It was done in previous times in the middle 90s for some countries which joined later on the European Union. Why not trying to find a new approach? And I hope very much that we can now, with the new Commission, find a new approach, not in the way that Macron says. I think it's not feasible. And so I think we should really, do our best to give us the right answer by the Commission. Thank you.
Well, thank you for always being so passionate on trying to build the rationale and how important EU is on the Western Balkans. So I'll go back now. The President Macron said that EU is on the edge of a precipice. And now I was thinking, and I would ask that to you, Dubravka. So if EU is on the edge of a precipice, do you think that the recipe to keep Balkans at the arm length might really help Western Balkans?
No.
Definitely not. But may I...
Doris replied immediately. So.
May I go back to this question what Doris was saying about. I'm not going to criticize Macron, but I want to tell you that in the last council meeting, there were two socialist governments, not only Macron, who is liberal, but there was a Dutch government and Danish government who were against two socialist governments which are in power in North Macedonia and also in Albania. So there were two socialists against two socialists, which is also very... It is very important to mention this here. Then, I was also reading the non-paper which was sent to us, which was written by Macron. But let me say that there is still Article 49 within treaty, which was enough for all of us who joined the Union. I want to remind you that we were the only state after Greece which joined in 1981. Croatia joined in 2013 alone. There were always a package of countries, but we joined alone, which means this was tailor-made approach, and I think tailor-made approach should persist for other countries. So I think there is enough space within Article 49 and within the actual treaty in order to fulfill all the obligations. But maybe this is the moment when we can open the question of unanimity in the Council. Because if we have unanimity, that means that that it can be always blocked. So I will opt during my future term for qualified majority, because especially for foreign affairs, for climate, and maybe for taxation. Otherwise, whoever wants can block something due to some internal reasons, due to maybe future elections or something, in order to make the citizens, voters satisfied. So they might be victims of the internal political situation, which is not good. And I think this is one of the reasons why they voted like this in the Council. I want to remind you, it was Zagreb Summit 2000, then Thessaloniki Summit 2003, and then there was a last summit also in Thessaloniki 2018, but we are looking forward to organizing a new big summit 20+ in Zagreb, where I think, as I already said, Croatia can be a role model. We can, I hope this summit will be successful. We will try to have all countries from the region together with some European countries, European Union countries, in Zagreb, and I hope we can help a lot. But before that, I think that smart people will gather once again in the Council and try to reconsider this non-decision. This non-decision was really very bad for the countries, and I'm definitely sure that it won't help anyone, that it won't help any young person to stay there, so they will get their education and then they will move forward towards Western countries. And of course, it's good. I will tell you from the Croatian example, people from Croatia also move out, but although we are European Union, but you know, there are 4 freedoms. We are very, very happy to get these 4 freedoms, but freedom of movement is also one of the best ones. I'm thinking about Erasmus, thinking about all other exchange programs, but at the same time, it's paradoxically enough that people use this freedom in order not to need any working permits, and they can work wherever they want on the single market of European Union, which is also good. But once they get skills, it would be nice, and it will be part of my portfolio, to come back. There are some very good examples in Poland, where people, as you know, millions, 2 million Polish people left in 2005, 6, 7, but they are now coming back as soon as their economy is rising, GDP is rising, people feel better at home, and it's always better to be at home than to be always foreigner or stranger somewhere. Although we praise for our European unity, but at the same time, everyone would like to live where he or she is born. So I think enlargement is not over. Enlargement is not out. Enlargement is here. But I think this is my proposal. Prime ministers and presidents within Council have to rethink, reconsider, and think more profoundly about what they decided or non-decided last time. This would be my proposal.
Thank you very much. Let me welcome Chancellor Merkel that joined the room. Good evening, and thank you very much. And thank you for always standing by our side and being a firm supporter of the enlargement and the accession of Balkans in the EU.
Thank you.
And then I'll continue with the youngest among us. You know, one figure out of the Balkan Barometer strikes us most, and we call it 61 to 61. Mathematically, you can't hardly in statistics get a figure like that. 61% of the young people in the region are firm supporters of EU integration, and 61% of the young people from the region are eager to leave their region. So if you and anybody could make an analysis, we'll say that they do have a lot of trust that the European standards will be applied at home. That's why they support the EU integration. But once they feel that these standards are not applied, the same amount of people, young people, are ready to leave. So, and I know that there are no universal recipes, but how do you see your role as well, as a non-profit or a non-governmental organization, in pushing for your generation to have a better perspective at home, and trying to shrink this problem of brain drain, which is becoming such a big one in the region? Well, and sorry, we have 15 minutes, so I think that we'll wrap up in short.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for this question. I think non-governmental organizations such as IRI play an important role. Of course, it is not our role to stop brain drain. We can possibly do that, but we can contribute to ensuring that the young and bright professionals may have a chance of staying in their country and live there prosperously. IRI's core mission, not only in the Western Balkans, but everywhere in the world, is to advance democracy and freedom. And there are different ways and methods how we do it. It's similar to what Mrs. Pak already said about the Robert Schuman Institute. We link people with their governments, we guide politicians to be more responsive to their citizens, and we motivate people to engage in the political process. And I might be subjective, and my colleagues may argue, but I think this is the most important part of our work, motivating people. And I've been with IRI, and I've been working with young politicians for the past 8 years. I think that oftentimes they lack the motivation because they don't find someone, if they're a young political leader, within their own party to listen to them, to listen to their concerns. Because oftentimes they approach us exactly for that, to listen, to help them find their voice, to demand a seat at a table. And if there's one thing that I would highlight as a positive development in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's from our work with young political leaders from different political parties and EPP member parties as well, who have found partners, sometimes not within, seniors in their own parties, but with their peers in other political parties. And I think that is very valuable for the future of this country and the entire region, that they learn that compromise is good, that they learn that cross-party cooperation is essential for the development of this entire region and for our European integration, that ethnic divides do not help us. Yeah. I'm also encouraged, by the leadership of Chancellor Merkel and President-elect of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, with their latest messages on the European integration and the prospects of, our countries actually eventually joining them, as well as the U.S. engagement. And there is a renewed U.S. engagement with, Special Envoy Matthew Palmer and Ambassador Granel in Kosovo and Serbia. I'm also very encouraged by what you said throughout the panel. I think it is immensely important to keep, the Western Balkans engaged. But, I can't ignore the big elephant in the room, as Mrs. Pak and, Mrs. Schulz already said. The French had a, coming from Bosnia and just speaking with young people over there, it is very discouraging, I have to tell you, and I can't imagine this, atmosphere, what it's like in North Macedonia at the moment, in Albania.
Well, standing at the blue side of London.
Yes, so I think, there are many statements that Mr. Macron made in his interviews for The Economist, but there is one I would like to highlight, and he portrayed Bosnia as a ticking time bomb.
Incredible.
And that is not only factually incorrect. Our institute has been working on countering violent extremism in the entire region, so I know for a fact that this is not correct because we work with security agencies there. But maybe I would agree that Bosnia is a ticking time bomb, not for the reasons that he cited, the return of women and children from Syria and Iraq, but because we have Russia and its anti-Western proxies undermining the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I think also other countries in the region. I mean, just, think of Montenegro and what happened there. Yeah. And you mentioned Russia already, and I think it is so important for all of us to really focus on the Russian influence in the region. Russia has its political proxies, and, sometimes we investigate and examine the disinformation campaigns, and they're out there, and there are, different proxies that are implementing those. But sometimes it is out there, and you can see it. For example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we know that the Russian ambassador is undermining the sovereignty of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So I think it is an important thing to discuss. I am happy that the EPP is paying attention to this information, and one of their resolutions was on that. And yes, happy to discuss it more if we have time.
Well, thank you very much for bringing such a sensitive issue, but we all know that when EU cloud is at its peak, then the reforms are pushed and there is no gap or vacancy for others to join, not only Russia or China, but nationalism, autocracy, and all that is present in the region. Doris, we only have 5 minutes. And I would ask you, so 1 minute please, and then 1 minute to Dubravka. So what else can the Commission push for and then member states push for? So from the region, we have a good story of regional cooperation, which was the free roaming agreement. We are working on other agendas. One of those that is close to our hearts is the mobility, so the recognition of professions and diplomas. which will mean that whenever under this severe situation of unemployment you cannot find a job in Tirana as an architect or doctor, then you can find a job in a hospital in Sarajevo, and then goes the same for the old countries. So what do you think can the Commission push on member states push on that as well?
Okay, we have seen something because the roaming situation in the Western Balkans, it was done by our commissioner,
Indeed.
Maria
Maria
Gabriel.
Gabriel,
She
yeah.
was doing this. It is really great. It helps a lot to the people there. It was an initiative. I spoke on the education and a system which is applicable for the people in the region. So I don't want to continue like this. But I think there are need to make a follow-up to some decisions in the Balkan summits. You spoke on the public transportation. It is so much needed, cross-bordering, but inside also Bosnia-Herzegovina. So I think this is some possibility which should really be increased. And if we see that it's also difficult to cross the border between Bosnia-Herzegovina and Kosovo. So I think this is something which is should also keep in mind, because one part of Bosnia-Herzegovina is not allowing it. So I think we should push the people there that said do something on this. And let me tell you one thing. It is a shame that Kosovo doesn't have visa liberalization. It is the only country in the Western Balkans and in Eastern Germany, in East Europe. Georgia have it, Ukraine have it, Kosovo doesn't have it. I think it is a shame, and I think we should really, as Commission, work for this to convince people like Macron, who think perhaps that the people will go out. The most Albanians going out coming from Albania are not coming from Kosovo.
And
please help us.
And I do agree with you. Kosovars are not even traveling freely to Bosnia-Herzegovina. Even to enter Bosnia, they need a visa.
Yeah.
And let alone the EU now. So, Dubravka, the 1 minute that will be
if I may continue.
yours now. Please make good use.
Once we promise something to Kosovars,
Yeah.
we promise we have to
Deliver.
implement, to deliver. They fulfilled all the obligations. The demarcation with Montenegro, they did everything we asked them. The same as North Macedonian people or Macedonian people did for the change of the name, which is really something huge, if I may say. So once we promise, we have to deliver. My conclusion would be the Europe won't be complete without this
Western
part
Balkans.
of the world. This can't stay as black hole. This is what I wanted to tell you. Foreign influence, not to mention the countries, but Doris already mentioned, and Almira mentioned the countries. Foreign influence is huge, so European influence should be there. We should be present, and this was, I will dare say, historic mistake. I hope it can be corrected very soon, and if not, Croatia will, during our presidency in the next 6 months, we'll do our best, and then Germany follows. I hope they will take over from us, and we'll do everything in order to have our neighbors with us. As I want to, of course, all the countries, Montenegro, Serbia, Kosovo, Albania, North Macedonia, but for us in Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina is
of high
very,
importance,
very
yeah.
important. You have to know that we share the longest border in Europe. The border is longer than between Russia and Finland. So this is the longest border in Europe between Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's not easy for such a relatively small country to keep the border. As you know, there are problems. I don't want to open a new topic today, so let's act together, and I'm looking forward.
So there are still a lot of things in the long road to hoe, but the Balkans, so the EU will not be completed without Western Balkans. Let me wish you good luck during the EU presidency next month. Amelia, good luck to you, and I have to commend your energy and the hard work. Doris, your energy is really surpassing us all, so I think that you are the most energetic one in this panel. And so thank you for participating. And the last remark from me, since I'm trying to take care and facilitate the regional cooperation this year, I would say that the regional integration, it has a sense once the final end is European integration. Otherwise, it's going to be quite difficult to achieve any success story in the Western Balkans. Thank you very much, and good luck with the remaining part of the Congress.
Thank you. Thank you.